A Butler County grand jury clears a Hamilton police officer of criminal wrongdoing in a weekend shootout.
The confrontation on Saturday morning left 18-year-old Brandon Keeler dead and Officer Chad Stafford with a gunshot wound to the head. Local 12's Larry Davis is live in Hamilton with new information on what police are calling a recipe for disaster. Hi, Larry.
Hi, Cammie. This was indeed a recipe for disaster. The chief says we had a suspect here who was involved in drugs, who had a fascination for guns, also a fascination for a violent video game, who had some mental issues. Now, the police chief says that Brandon Keeler's intent was to kill a police officer. A gun battle left the suspect dead and the police officer wounded. Police say this was the arsenal Brandon Keeler had on him when he opened fire Saturday morning. Investigators say he was firing an AK-47, had over 200 rounds of ammunition, magazines loaded to capacity, and he was also carrying a Glock 10mm handgun. Chief Scott Scrimizzi says evidence points to Keeler wanting a gun battle with police.
He had left notes to his friends that he had been staying with, that there was no changing his mind, that they could have the AK after it was pried from his hands. And to whoever shot me, hoorah.
Police say Officer Chad Stafford was the first to respond to reports of shots being fired at 11th and Sipple. Keeler fired on the officer, striking him once in the head.
There's quite a bit of blood with respect to this grazed bullet. It went all the way to his skull. It wasn't, like in the old cowboy western movies, just a little. He winged me. No, this was a bullet that probably a millimeter or so more would have penetrated his brain.
Wounded and bleeding from the head, Officer Stafford then returned the gunfire from 62 feet away, shooting Keeler twice, killing him. Police say while the 18-year-old Keeler was old enough to buy an AK-47, he was not old enough to purchase the Glock 10mm. ATF agents say they want to find out who is responsible for buying that weapon.
We are aggressively trying to get to the bottom of where these guns came from and these individuals, their involvement in this investigation.
And again, Keeler had over 200 rounds of ammunition at his disposal there. Now, prosecutor Mike Moser says he fired off 9 rounds. 2 hit the officer. 7 others were fired in the neighborhood. And he says those shells could have very well penetrated some nearby homes, possibly injuring or killing someone. Now, Officer Stafford remains on paid administrative leave, and a Butler County grand jury, as you mentioned before, did not find any criminal wrongdoing in this case. Live in Hamilton, Larry Davis, Local 12 News. Cammie, back to you.